let's crack on, I think is the term. Mr. Collins, there you go. So we're on to phase 3, I think.
Cool.
Performance, with performance targets now, correct?
Yeah, the narrations and the... Yeah. I think that's
So
probably...
you're just expecting questions on that?
I think so. It's probably the best way to go.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chairman, that starts on page 101 of the agenda. Is the
No, you can feel free to go. Yep, no, that's great.
I even went and bought some glasses so I could read your confounded reports.
and explain to us with the microphone on.
I'm just on projected income. It's page 85. I'm just interested in some of the numbers overflow. I always like to check. Why is the Mara Taita River Control Scheme 1,492% overspent?
Where are we?
Where are you exactly?
Page 85 under 20, and it's line 247.
247, right. Ah.
Is this some income?
It is.
Yeah. Sorry.
It'll balance itself out in the wash, I realise that.
Yeah.
But
It
just
does
seem
through
to-
the scheme.
I'm
What have you
not
been
quite...
doing there, Mike?
It's a very small amount,
All right.
and it's obviously an anomaly. The big one is under 278.
Yeah, it's 1, 2.
Will be a significant one because, well, if you drive to the airport and see the new stop bank
I've
on
seen
that is partially funded by others, and so there will be quite a significant income associated with that. But obviously, the costs go through our books, so there will be a significant increase in cost and an increase in income
But
associated.
the one at the airport is long overdue.
Yep.
West Shore Coastal Works, 264.
Yep.
We've spent a bit more than we thought we were going to there, haven't we?
We have.
And the reason is?
50% of that is met by Napier City Council.
So we're expecting a refund?
We will get 50%
Okay.
recovered. At this stage, we have yet to bill them, I think. So.
I'm on to the second page. I'm on line 450. Compliance and consent. Compliance programs. We're well over there. According to the right-hand column, 168.87%.
Manton, help me out, but that's a result of billing cycles?
The billing cycle was at the
Yeah.
end of the year for that particular project.
Billing cyclists?
So-
Oh, just a cycle. Oh, Sure. All right.
Send you the bill soon.
And then I've got a little doozy here. This is yours, number 720. Marine oil spilling with 2,680,955% over. I've never seen a number that big on a percentage overrun yet. You should put that down as a record.
Yes. For that particular one, we have to put a claim into the Crown for that, don't we?
Yeah, so that's the costs associated with running our training programs around.
I saw that other thing.
Yep,
So that's
so-
all your training stuff, I guess, then.
So pollution fund pays for that.
Yeah.
Fully recovered out of the Maritime Pollution Fund, yeah.
Sure, that's cool. But it is a great number, isn't it? And the other one is on 10 capital projects on the following page, 88. Totals, we just seem to be running ahead of budget here. Is this because of the timing and sequence of events rather than, we've got something running out of control here? As you go right across the far line, we've got variance 103.89%, just in round terms.
Oh, it's a very small number. I think it's just
Very small number, but I just thought that's just timing and sequence, isn't it?
Yes, most likely.
just check.
I don't have any issues, sorry. I'll put my microphone on. I don't have any major issues with any of those. There will be some small variations, but I'll have another look at those, I think.
There is variations every time
Yep.
we come to over. all over the place through the end of the year, don't they?
Yep.
Things run or things run.
Yep.
Yeah, we kind of look at things in totality and see where things are at.
If something's creeping away, you need to get hold of it.
Absolutely. I did put them on A3 this time for you though. Did you see that?
You didn't increase the numbers.
Yeah.
Change the lifestyle.
Ca-
Further apart than just a small.
Councillor Pike.
Yeah, look, Manton, page, anyway, it's with regards to the external and internal loans. And it was something that came up at one of the our plan meetings. There was a comment made about the stock banks and the possibility of keeping the stock banks, you know, raising them up a bit or whatever. And I just noticed the soil fly remediation. It brought to memory, Christine had mentioned something about the loan being almost paid off. Can you tell me when that's from the soil fly remediation loan? Is that almost paid off or not?
Off the top of my head, next year is the last year that we have to pay $640,000, and the following year it's down to 400 and something, and the following year 100 and something, and that's it. Yeah.
And that's it. So
there
another.
is, yeah.
So, yeah, flows on.
And that's when we'll pick up the Capital Works program.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So another 3 years' time.
No, we'll
Two-
be doing
two-
interim steps. I mean, there's quite a
Oh, you are
significant
gonna-
amount of design work to be done anyway, so that'll be the first step.
Okay. Cool. That's all.
Councillor Bevan.
Thanks, Chair. Page 95. This is probably you, Mike. Tongoyo Reserve Fund now sits at more than $4 million. Is there a cap to that? It
No.
seems an awful lot of money.
That is not our money. That is Crown money. And the Conservation Reserve was vested, or the management and control of the reserve was vested in council, council predecessor at Catchment Board in about 1988, 1989. And any earnings from that reserve have been ring-fenced. They can be used for management of that reserve, but nothing else.
Oh,
So
the
hence-
interest goes back in.
Yes, so that money is strictly speaking Crown money, and we have had negotiations with the Crown since 1991 to try and resolve it. We actually got there last year with the Mangahuru Tangitu Treaty Settlement, whereby we are now able to channel money in excess of our requirements for management of that reserve going forward into a separate fund for environmental enhancement, soil conservation within those 4 catchments within their rohi.
Good deal too.
Well negotiated.
Oh, that's a good outcome.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Scott.
I've got a number of questions on the narratives, if we're up to the narratives, can I?
Before we get there, any other questions around preceding sections? Okay, narrative.
My first one relates to a matter that is described on page 104, and it's just a query around the visit of the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment. Everything's been on hold until we have that. It's to be early in 2015. I think we're through early in 2015. Have we had any indication from the Office of PCE as when they'll come?
You've reminded me, I haven't even had a response to our request to send anybody or acknowledgement of our request, so I'll follow up on that. Yeah.
Thank you. And I know that we have brought this up before, and I know that we have kept requesting it, and I think we should be well aware that it's the PCE office that is dragging the chain.
Okay.
Can I
Good.
carry on?
Further, yeah.
Right, my next question relates to page 111. We've had a notification of by email of a press release, and there was a bit in the paper today on this, on the effect of taking the firewood from the river. Can you tell us how big this problem is? This is about the lopping the trees for the edge protection.
Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't seen the article in the paper, but We have an ongoing lopping program.
Yeah.
It is done at specific times of the year just because of safety issues,
Yeah,
because, yeah, they,
But how big is the problem around the theft?
yeah, oh, okay, I'm not sure, actually. I doubt whether it's huge, but it is, yeah, I mean, it's obviously an issue, yeah. So, it'll be wet wood.
Look very tidy.
Yeah, so that's Ian's problem, really.
You want me to keep going? Page 131, and over the page with the compliance, this is the resource consent applications. That's something to shout about, that we're 100% within timeframes. I know that we do from time to time benchmark and report on that, but we must be right up there with one of the best performing councils on such a figure, are we not?
I would suspect we are. I haven't actually looked and compared, but we've had, I think, about 3 years now of 100% compliance to time frames. So yeah, it's certainly
And
up there.
over the page, that 99% of our monitored consents are actually graded compliant. I would have thought that that was a pretty impressive record if we were benchmarking against other councils.
Yes, look, I'm not actually sure in terms of benchmarking that particular figure against other councils, because we don't survey for that, I don't recall, but certainly could find out.
But a good result, Mr. Chairman. And keep going. Page 139. Around the risk management and land use change. What's our time frame for this? Because we all too often actually have to look backwards and then manage, mitigate the effects of land use on hazard. What's our time frame to implement a change around this?
Well, Councillor, through the long-term plan process, that was one of the, I guess, casualties of the process. So it's it's still there, not in a specific sense. If the opportunity comes up to
Through statutory advocacy.
to do it, but there is a process going on with I think it's liquefaction.
Yes.
Some guidelines coming through anyway. So there's stuff happening at a national level which would be useful to feed into that process anyway. So, but certainly not not programmed in the next 3 years.
Okay, thank you. And I think my last question on this one was page 142. This is relating to preparedness through CDEM, which shows quite a marked increase in people being prepared. The lower figure for the storage of water, does that indicate that a lot of people are relying on what's in their cylinders? Because they seem to have access to everything else but independent sources of stored water. I don't suppose anyone here can answer this, probably the CDEM group.
No, I'm aware of surveys, though, that the number of people who say they're prepared and who are actually repaired does differ.
Doesn't rhyme. You might
Just a flag for that one.
answer the question. The figure looked impressive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right, any other questions on the narrative, Councillor Belford?
First one is on
Just microphone, please, for the camera.
just on page 123. There's a reference to supporting various water user groups. So this would be the kind of thing that you were discussing earlier as far as the financial savings a bit ago, that we put money into some of these groups, or?
Yeah, this, through you, Mr. Chairman, this wasn't specifically around those groups. What I was referring to was a forum where we invite representatives from a number of, or all the primary sector activities throughout Hawke's Bay to regular meetings here. But this This particular reference around the water user groups comes back to work that's done through the Water Initiatives team, and that's really undertaken through one of our staff members who's been on parental leave and has just returned, so she's sort of picking up that work again.
So at this point, the water user groups are actually basically irrigators, is that?
Consent holders, yes.
Consent
Yeah,
holders.
Yes, yes.
And in view of the fact that we're now becoming environmentally sensitive and required to be so, why would these groups not, if we're going to have groups meeting on a regular basis and so forth, why would they not include some kind of environmental representation?
They're, so these are effectively,
Organized by the,
so the groups of consent holders who we bring together to say, drive in things like how do we get better efficiency in water use? How can we maximise your opportunity? And so it's us providing a forum to work with them once they've got their consent, so they've been through all the regulatory and environmental hurdles, they've got their consent, their licence to operate, if you like. How do we get them, lifting the bar continually in terms of best practice and those sorts of things?
so.
So it's a very operationally focused discussion.
I understand that. So what struck me here was that one of the groups mentioned was Twyford, for example. And as you know, there have been sidecar meetings with those users and others, iwi and what have you, to talk about global consents and what have you. The lesson of which would seem to be that if these groups were a little mixed in their composition, maybe some of those kinds of issues could be, preempted or forestalled or mitigated earlier in the process. But as long as they're left to be a bunch of grumpy users getting together, we sort of get the outcome we get.
I think the role of the regional council really in those particular groups that are referenced there is to facilitate the establishment of those groups, but really they're self-managing, self-governing, and they can invite who they want effectively, but if they don't want people, we're not going to force them to have them either.
Okay, all right. Page 125, there's a reference to a coastal state of the environment report. Is that when is that in report?
So
Is that yet to
that's,
come?
that's the technical report that sits behind the 5-year SOE trends report that you received at your last meeting. So that's what it refers to.
Page 141. This is civil defense group welfare advisory group. What is that referring to? Group welfare plan, group welfare manager,
Okay, so that's
welfare advisory group.
so part of the broader civil defence and emergency management group, and in addition to the work that's done by the various councils in responding to an emergency, it involves a number of other agencies, and there's lifelines such as power and the TAs through their water supplies and things, but there's also the welfare groups, which are essentially the ones that look after the
Salvation Army?
all of those, Red Cross, Ministry of Social Development, things like that. So as part of the review of the group plan for Hawke's Bay, Ian's identified the need for a role for a part-time group welfare manager. So coordinator. She works, I think it's equivalent of 2 days a week.
Do we provide any assistance financially to those groups for the role they might need to play, or in an actual disaster setting?
No.
No?
No, we don't.
Might feed and water them at a meeting.
Lastly, on 151, this was mentioned earlier, the Tamata Peak. Are we getting a report of some kind on? I mean, I'm aware that they've been making the rounds to other councils to explain what they're thinking, how their thinking has evolved, and I assume trying to hang on to some funding in that process. So, do we get a turn at some point?
Yes, you will. In our long-term plan for the proposed long-term plan, we had, because it had gone to print, as it were, well before this decision was known about, we've made provision for that $500,000 to be included in that. My understanding is that they will make a submission to this council as part of the long-term plan in relation to that use of those funds, and I think that's when you get a report on it, and B, the opportunity to decide if and how and to whom those funds are used.
Is it just a 10-minute vote, or are we going to?
No, just through you, Mr. Chairman. I've had conversations with them, and I've got a meeting in Hastings at 3:30 today, just with that on one part of the agenda. I'm looking and talking to them about the possibility of them coming in to the Environment Services Committee in the middle of next month.
Councillor Bevan.
Page 101, under Sustainable Regional Growth, Wairau Dairy Market Validation Study completed. I can't remember having seen that. Was it?
Done by Wairau District Council.
Oh, okay.
That's
So
my-
can we get a copy of it? I'm quite interested.
I actually haven't seen a copy myself, but I understand they did some work. Yeah, good point.